Welcome back to Nation of Glory, the home where true stories, powerful journeys, and unstoppable spirits rise to the top. Today's tale is not just about strength, not just about ambition, but about the kind of fire that refuses to die even when life tries to put it out. So sit back, turn up your volume, and let me take you on a journey that will stay with you long after this video ends. This is the emotional, cinematic, Hollywood-style story of a young woman who turned her dreams into destiny, a rising warrior who fought through every wall in her way, and a reminder that greatness is never handed to you. You earn it, you bleed for it, and you stand back up every single time you fall. Let's begin. She was born in a small neighborhood in Texas, one of those places where dreams felt too big and the world felt too far. The streets were familiar, the summers were hot, and everyone mostly minded their own business. But in one little house at the end of the block, a young girl named Carla lived with a spark inside her that no one could quite understand. Other kids dreamed of becoming teachers, doctors, football stars, but her dream was different. She wanted to become a wrestler, not because someone told her she should, but because something in her heart whispered every night that the ring was where she belonged. She didn't come from a family of champions. She didn't grow up inside a legacy. She didn't know anyone who could open doors for her. What she did have was an old TV, a collection of taped matches, and a heart that beat faster every time she saw someone fight their way to victory. One night, after watching a match that pushed her imagination beyond its limits, she stood up, pressed her small hands into her chest, and said the words that would shape her whole life: "I'm going to do that. One day, I'll be in that ring." But big dreams rarely come without big doubts. Her parents loved her, but even they worried. Wrestling was dangerous. Wrestling was unpredictable. And more than that, it felt impossible. When people around her heard about her dream, many of them laughed. Kids at school teased her. Adults told her to be realistic. Friends told her she was chasing something too far away. Yet, every time someone told her, "You can't," she silently responded, "Watch me." She started training in her backyard, no equipment, no professional ring, just an old jump rope, a makeshift punching bag, and a determination stronger than anything around her. She watched matches, studied movements, paused, rewound, and practiced until her feet were sore and her muscles begged her to stop. But she never quit. She couldn't. Something inside her insisted that pain was temporary, but regret would last forever. As she got older, she found a small wrestling school not too far from home. The building wasn't fancy, cracked walls, worn-out mats, and air conditioning that barely worked, but to her, it was the most beautiful place in the world. She worked after school, saved every penny she could, and eventually earned enough money to join. Walking into that training center for the first time felt like stepping into destiny. The air smelled like sweat and grit, the sound of shoes squeaking against the mat filled the room, and the ring stood in the middle like a throne for warriors. She wasn't intimidated, she was electrified. But the road ahead wasn't simple. On her first day, she was the smallest person in the room. Some trainees were older, stronger, bigger, more experienced. At first glance, nobody believed she would last a week. Some people even whispered behind her back that she'd quit soon, that she had no chance in a world built on toughness. She heard them, every word, but she used it as fuel. The first bump she took knocked the wind out of her. The second made her question everything. The third nearly broke her spirit. But she reminded herself why she started. She wiped her tears before anyone could see them and kept going. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Slowly, she grew stronger. Her footwork sharpened, her balance improved, and the girl who everyone expected to give up became the girl who refused to stop. Coaches began to notice her discipline. Other trainees started respecting her fire. She wasn't the strongest, but she was the hungriest. Still, even with her determination, life had its own challenges. She faced injuries that left her sitting on the sidelines, watching others do what she loved. She faced moments where money ran low, where doubt crept in, where loneliness whispered that maybe everyone else was right. Maybe this dream wasn't meant for her. But she pushed through. She picked up part-time jobs, studied during breaks, trained during nights, and built herself piece by piece into something unbreakable. She didn't want sympathy. She wanted a chance. And she was willing to work for it harder than anyone else. Then, one life-changing day, opportunity knocked on her door, not loudly, not dramatically, but softly, through a small independent wrestling event where she was offered a spot. She wasn't a star. She wasn't on posters. She wasn't even expected to be noticed. But when she stepped into that ring, everything changed. The crowd didn't know her name yet, but when she performed, when she moved, when she showed her heart, they felt something. They felt her passion, her authenticity, her hunger. And for the first time, people were cheering for her. That night, she walked out of the building with no idea that someone in the crowd had recorded her match, and that video would soon go viral. People online began asking about her. They wanted to know who she was. They wanted to see more. It was the first spark of recognition, but it was only the beginning. As her popularity grew, she traveled from city to city, wrestling in small venues, gyms, armories, anywhere she could tell her story through her craft. These shows didn't pay much. Some paid nothing, but she wasn't doing it for money. She was doing it because every match was another step toward her destiny. One night, after a match that left her exhausted but proud, her coach walked up to her with a message that would change everything. "Someone important is watching you," he said. "Don't stop now." She didn't know exactly what that meant, but she held onto those words tightly. And then, one evening, after a long day of training, she got the message she never expected: a professional company wanted to meet her. Not a small promotion, not a regional group, a major one, the kind that changed people's lives. She stared at the message for several minutes, unable to breathe. This was it, the dream she chased since she was a child. The thing she fought for every single day. But fear crept in. What if she wasn't ready? What if they changed their minds? What if all her sacrifices didn't pay off? Her mentor saw her hesitation and said, "Opportunities don't wait. You go now." With shaking hands and a heart beating faster than ever, she agreed. The meeting day arrived, and she walked into the building feeling like that same little girl with big dreams. But this time, she wasn't invisible. People talked to her, asked about her journey, asked about her passion, and she spoke honestly. She spoke from her heart. She didn't pretend. She didn't exaggerate. She told them about her struggles, her training, her dedication. And they saw something real in her. Soon after, she received the news that would change her entire life. She was being offered a contract. She broke down crying, happy tears. Overwhelming tears, the kind of tears that come when a dream no longer feels impossible. She hugged her family, called her friends, thanked her mentors, and promised herself she'd never forget where she came from. But getting signed was just the beginning. As she stepped into the new world of professional wrestling at the highest level, she learned that competition was fiercer, expectations were higher, and pressure was heavier than anything she'd ever felt. She was surrounded by veterans, legends, people who spent years building their careers. She was no longer the star of a small show, she was one of hundreds trying to rise. But she didn't let that intimidate her. She worked harder than ever, first to earn respect, then to earn opportunity, and eventually, to earn her place. She showed up earlier than everyone else and stayed later. She treated every match like it was the biggest moment of her life. And slowly, she began building a reputation not just as a talented wrestler, but as someone who carried passion in every step she took. But success is never a straight line. She faced setbacks. She lost matches. She got injured again. She doubted herself more times than she could count. There were nights when she sat alone wondering if she truly belonged, if she was strong enough, if she was ready to handle the weight of her dream. Her confidence cracked, but it didn't break. One night, after a particularly difficult match, she sat alone backstage, staring at her hands, thinking about every moment that led her here. That's when an older wrestler approached her, someone she admired deeply, and said, "You know what makes a real champion? Not winning, not strength, not fame. What makes a champion is the ability to stand back up when the world expects you to stay down." Those words lit a fire inside her. She stood up, wiped her sweat, clenched her jaw, and promised herself that no matter what came next, she would never let doubt steal her destiny. And then came the turning point. During a major event, she was given an opportunity that would put her in front of thousands in the arena and millions watching from home. Many thought she was too young, too inexperienced, too new. But when the bell rang, she proved every single one of them wrong. She fought with everything she had, not just for victory, but for validation. For her family who sacrificed for her younger self who dared to dream, for every person who believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. Her performance that night stunned everyone. She didn't just wrestle, she told a story, pouring her heart into every move. By the end of the match, the crowd wasn't just cheering, they were chanting her name. In that moment, she realized something: she didn't just belong here, she deserved to be here. Her career continued rising as she inspired fans worldwide. She used her platform to motivate young kids who had big dreams but small opportunities, kids who felt the world telling them, "You can't." She looked into their eyes and said, "I was you. And if I can make it, you can too." But as her star grew, so did her responsibilities. Fame came with expectations, and expectations came with pressure. There were days she felt on top of the world, and days when the weight nearly crushed her. But every time she stepped into the ring, she remembered why she started. She wasn't doing it for fame. She wasn't doing it for applause. She was doing it because wrestling was the language her heart spoke. As the years went on, she became a symbol of determination, a reminder that dreams don't have limits, only obstacles. She continued to evolve, adapt, grow, and sharpen her craft. People admired her humility, her resilience, and her refusal to take shortcuts. She earned respect, not just for her talent, but for her character. And then, one evening, during a charity event, she met a young girl who reminded her so much of herself. Small, shy, but with eyes full of fire. The girl told her, "Everyone at school says I can't be a wrestler, but I want to be just like you." She knelt down, looked the girl directly in the eyes, and said, "Never let anyone else decide your dream. If I listened to every person who told me I couldn't, I wouldn't be here today." That moment lived in her heart forever. Her journey continued upward, more matches, more moments, more stories that touched lives. She faced betrayal, alliances, victories, disappointments, but through it all, she remained a warrior with a soul carved from resilience. Hollywood producers even began noticing her charisma, her spirit, her star power. Talks of documentaries, films, roles, opportunities started floating around her. She became more than a wrestler, she became a symbol of hope. She traveled the world, met fans from countries she never thought she'd visit, heard stories from people who said she inspired them to chase their own dreams, dancers, athletes, students, parents, people who felt lost until they saw her rise. She learned that success isn't measured by belts or trophies, but by the lives you touch along the way. But life, unpredictable as always, still tested her. One year, she suffered a major injury, one that threatened her career. Doctors told her recovery would be long and difficult. Some even said she might never return to the ring. For a moment, the world that she built felt like it was crumbling. But she wasn't the same girl she once was, she was stronger, wiser, and more determined. She began rehab with the same mindset she had as a young kid training in her backyard. Every painful step forward reminded her of her purpose. She worked harder than ever before because she believed that champions are not made in moments of glory, they are made in moments of struggle. Months passed. Recovery was slow, but progress was steady. She pushed through every limitation doctors placed on her. She attended training sessions even when she couldn't participate, watching, learning, staying mentally sharp. And then, one special day, when the doctors finally cleared her to return, she stepped into the ring again. She didn't come back weaker. She didn't return afraid. She returned fiercer, stronger, more experienced, and hungrier than ever. Her comeback match wasn't about victory, it was about redemption. The crowd erupted when she entered. Tears fell from fans who watched her climb impossible mountains. She stepped into the ring, touched the ropes gently, and whispered, "I'm home." The bell rang. She moved like a storm, confident, powerful, unstoppable. Every strike, every move told a story of pain, perseverance, and triumph. By the end of the match, the world wasn't just cheering for her victory, they were cheering for her resilience. Her story became one of the greatest comebacks the wrestling world had witnessed, a testament to human strength, not physical, but emotional. She stood at the center of that ring with her arm raised high, and she promised herself she would never take a single moment for granted again. Years later, her legacy continued growing. She became a mentor to new talent, guiding them, teaching them, telling them the same words that once kept her going: if you fall, get back up. If they doubt you, prove them wrong. If you dream, chase it until it becomes your reality. She didn't just become a star. She became a legend in the making. And through every chapter of her journey, from the little girl in Texas with big dreams, to the young trainee fighting to be seen, to the rising performer capturing hearts, to the global inspiration she became, her message stayed the same. Dream big, work hard, believe in yourself even when no one else does. Because sometimes, the greatest stories begin with the smallest sparks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining this emotional, powerful, Hollywood-style journey here on Nation of Glory. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more inspirational content, and share this video with someone who needs motivation today. This is Nation of Glory. And we'll see you in the next one.